Hello and welcome everyone to Insight. I'm Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Thank you for joining us this week.
Today we're discussing how rapid digitization and an expanding AI ecosystem are outpacing Nigeria's cybersecurity defenses. And John Orakwe, AI Programs Lead, will give us insights on the critical necessity of a transparent, inclusive national AI strategy. We'll also be speaking with Dr. Stephen Gbatigbi Benjuel, President Pan-Africa AU Agenda 2063 diplomatic mission, and he will be responding to our evolving issues on intra-continental migration and the struggle for scarce economic resources within Africa may be posing a threat to AU's agenda for a borderless Africa by 2063.
As we celebrate families this week, we will look at family values and the role of women in upholding these values. And Bolaji Raji, Chairman and Founder, New Dawn for Women and Community Intervention Initiative, will speak to us on how to build better societies.
Whatever the issues are,
the National Assembly is constitutionally empowered to scrutinize,
however complex or intricate.
We have involved all the academia, the members of the academia. We have involved the academies.
Be it government policies or in fact any issue of public concern.
Our job is to help you gain clarity and make sense of it all.
This is not really healthy for our democracy.
There's a lot of aggrievance in terms of who has been in power longest and who becomes the governor of the state.
It's also in the quality of food being consumed.
After all, perception is insight.
And gaining understanding is also getting in.
As Nigeria emerges as a leading tech hub in Africa, the integration of artificial intelligence, that is AI, into key sectors like finance, governance, and indeed our daily lives has unfortunately introduced unprecedented complexities. Granted, AI drives productivity, but it has also fundamentally shifted the cybersecurity landscape in Nigeria. And so it will seem like the more we integrate AI into our systems, the more we must alter our defensive postures, I should say. Let me bring in my guest at this point, Orakwe John. He's an AI programs lead and global AI educator, as well as being a digital transformation leader. Welcome to Insight, Orakwe. Glad you could join us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nnamdi. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, I wish I could reel out the figures that I have in front of me, but let me just see how quickly I can go, and quantify, go through the figures and quantify the risks that we currently face. In first quarter of 2025, it said that businesses experienced an average of 388, I should say, cyber attacks per week. That's like a 47% increase from figures that were presented, in the previous quarter. And, in terms of finance, financially, the losses are said to be staggering. We've gotten reports from just about everywhere. FBI's latest report says that global cyber crime losses are surged to a record 20.8 billion, and that's in dollars in 2025 alone. And Nigeria ranks, amongst the top 20 countries for complaints. So internationally, there is the issue. Domestically, we're facing a deluge of attacks. UNODC estimated our losses to be around 1.1 trillion, and that's across banks and telecoms. And of course, not forgetting digital payment frauds, that we experience. Even though it said that it declined by 51% to 25.85 billion naira in 2025, and that's because CBN had to carry out some intervention measures and the rest. But in spite of that, the threat remains acute. My question to you, John, is, doesn't it seem, or isn't it truthfully so, that these numbers that have reeled out, figures that have stated, that it would seem that there's a targeted, sophisticated attack, perhaps on Nigeria, rather than just opportunistic hacking taking place here? Does it seem so to you?
Well, what has happened, especially since the last quarter of 2025, is that the AI models that we have in the marketplace have gotten really good. So good that they now aid in the, as much as they aid in work, they also aid bad actors that carry out all of these cyber attacks against infrastructure. So what I mean is, Just about 4 weeks ago, we saw a report coming from the US, from Canada, and from London that the central banks of all of these different countries decided to have emergency meetings with the banks that they termed too big to fail. Now, the reason why they had that meeting was because of something called Mythos. Mythos is a new model from Anthropic. Anthropic is one of the biggest AI labs out there. Now, this model is said to be able to look at any cyber system, any digital system, be it a browser, be it the IT infrastructure for banks, the core banking infrastructure, and whatever, and then be able to spot all the frailties, all the weak points in these systems. Now, a lot of people panicked when this model was released, but it might interest you to know that since December, or maybe since November, December of 2025, the models have been able to look at the system and spot all the vulnerabilities depending on who is prompting these systems. So what has happened since the last quarter of 2025 is that the AI models that are available in the marketplace have gotten so good that given in the hands of an expert, right, they are able to point this to an existing infrastructure and then spot all the weaknesses. So we've seen the Corporate Affairs Commission, they were hacked recently.
Exactly, and exactly, that's going to, I mean, it's something you and I will talk about down the line, but I get what you mean. Please go ahead.
Okay, so the Corporate Affairs Commission, Sterling Bank, we saw the hack happen to them, FCMB, and a whole lot of Nigerian institutions have been affected by these recent hacks. The reason it's happening more frequently is because they are now systems that allow hacks that used to require a team of 80 people to do before. You need just 4 people with a team of AI agents that they can point to an existing infrastructure, and then they can take it down in 2 hours or maybe even in 20 minutes, compared to how much time in terms of human resources and in terms of time that they have to spend having to do this kind of attacks before.
Orakwe, and just like I said, you referenced CAC, and that's right on point. I mean, it's part of what we're talking about here. I mean, these advances have become so good that they've aided production, as it were. They've become so good that they are causing critically, I mean, we're seeing them being used specifically for critical infrastructural bridges. And, what is also potent for us, as it were, is that it presents as vulnerability, especially for databases here in Nigeria, particularly for agencies like you've mentioned, the CAC. I mean, we all remember that incident that played out, and now, a cyber attack on Corporate Affairs Commission, Nigeria's Corporate Affairs Commission, and what it meant. That breach alone forced the shutdown of the company's registration portal for 3 days. And it also did expose sensitive data, on ownership structures, directors' details, to members of the public. I mean, both people that should ordinarily have access to this information and those who should not have, all had access to this information. This incident, or such incidents, I think demonstrates that, well, no entity is immune. Doesn't that create a risk for our entire national digital infrastructure? For you, what specific defensive AI measure do you think at this point we should begin to deploy to protect, especially government systems from enemy attacks? I think that's the word, because it will seem like this is a war already. And how do we balance that, with the need for, because there's still a need for open data and digital governance in Nigeria. So how do we achieve somewhat of a balance?
Well, yes. On Tuesday, March 10th of this year, the CBN did something very commendable. They recommended that every bank in Nigeria, every microfinance bank, and every payment service provider should do something with AI. So they forced all of them to do real-time AI monitoring. So real-time transaction monitoring and then real-time anti-fraud monitoring. This was a very important mandate. In fact, it's a landmark mandate that the CBN issued. And by June 10 of this year, every payment service provider, every bank in Nigeria, every microfinance bank is required to submit an implementation roadmap. So what it means is this. The CBN is mandating them to do machine-to-machine defense. So what that means is that if the bad actors are deciding to use AI to attack, existing infrastructure, The banks themselves, all of these institutions must introduce AI-based tools and help them to do real-time monitoring of their entire infrastructure. So how that works is like this: they can have, millions of digital tripwires across their entire infrastructure. So whenever anything goes out of the norm, the system automatically triggers that something is about to happen here. Maybe somebody is about to access information that they're not supposed to access, and then whoever needs to attend to that situation attends to it in real time. So what we had before is a situation where the hack happens, maybe funds are stolen, records are stolen, data is stolen, and then we respond after the hack has happened. But what the CBN has recommended all the banks should do, all the microfinance banks should do, all the payment service providers should do, is exactly what every other government institution must do. And I think it's the job of the Nigerian Data Protection Agency. They have to mandate that every institution at all that collects individual citizen data must implement this same real-time monitoring of their entire IT infrastructure. So the defensive posture that we must take is machine-to-machine defense. If the people are attacking, if the bad actors are attacking with machines, you have to also deploy machines to protect against these attacks.
Exactly. And that's where this whole issue of a national AI strategy comes to play. And I mean, and this is also, and I think it's also germane and quite critical to have somewhat of an active collaboration between the private sector now being innovators, and then government institutions, just so we have a robust national AI strategy in place that is workable for our system. How do you think they factor in moving the train, as it were, in securing our cybersecurity space, as it were? And what do you think they need to prioritize at this point, whether in terms of transparency, in terms of inclusivity, so that we have the kind of collaborative, efforts or responsibilities that we're talking about? What do you think they need to do in the first instance to build trust and close that resource divide between innovators and government agencies, so that we build the kind of momentum that we really do require for cybersecurity protection in Nigeria?
So in the private sector, I know that there are a lot of incredible innovators. I know a number of solutions in the private sector that the banks will be deploying to comply to CBN's regulations, which has the mandate of March 10. So what I do think is that the government, especially the government agencies, need to be speaking to these private sector innovators, right? If there's some way that they can, give them incentives or what discounts, right? They can get discounts from the private sector so that our collective records are protected, right? And I do think that the NCC can do a lot of collaboration with the National Orientation Agency, right? In the sense that people need to be aware that these deepfakes are, here to stay, and they are going to get better and better, right? So if anything, the people who are most vulnerable, the older people, the population which you have mentioned, they all need to be aware that this is something that is a real threat now, and the technology will only get better and better. And so that way, they understand, to question the things that they see on the internet. Everything that is digital on the internet can be altered, right? And it can be altered in a way that is, almost unbelievably real, right? The Finnish, that's the country Finland, they have a very good media literacy curriculum. I do think that when the National Orientation Agency is, ready to go on this project of helping Nigerians understand the dangers of deepfake, they can look at what Finland is currently doing. They have the best media literacy program in the world. And I'm sure we can imitate one or two things from what they currently do. If at all, if it's possible, we can introduce these media programs in secondary schools, maybe even in the universities, just so they're of the things that are happening now, and they know how to protect themselves and those that are also vulnerable.
Okay, I wonder, Orakwe, if how much if you're tracking this National Digital Economic and E-Governance Bill, that it's supposed to provide a legal, backbone for AI governance in Nigeria. Of course, the bill, it's currently before the National Assembly. It's said to be crucial to creating a comprehensive, a safer, and efficient digital ecosystem for Nigeria. That, of course, provided that existing infrastructure and cybersecurity challenges are effectively addressed. I wonder if you think the same, if you think that is it and that would work, and generally what you think about the bill, and if properly enforced, if passed eventually and properly enforced, how it would help to further protect our cybersecurity space.
Well, I haven't had the pleasure of going through the bill, but I would definitely check it after this program. So, if anything, I do think that there are lots of good examples from around the world, and
okay.
I mean, as usual, we have we're very good at passing excellent bills here, but then it's execution that is always the bane of most of what we do. I do hope that when that bill is passed, and if it fits all the right metrics, that is executed correctly.
And I would agree with you there, or maybe perhaps lean a bit to what you said. Our problem has never been having policies. Policies are always in place, but how do we enforce these policies? How do we track their implementation? Do we ensure that the implementing agencies keep to their KPIs? Do we track them and monitor their progress or progress made? I think that's the key issue, and you've rightly said that. In rounding off our conversation, I'd like to know if there are perhaps some recommendations that you have for safeguarding Nigeria's digital ecosystem, such as maybe funding indigenous AI innovation, perhaps providing grants for AI startups to retain, at least for us to retain national talent here in Nigeria, as well as any other recommendation that you may have. But let me ask you this, Rakwe. How do you think we can really enforce meaningful transparency within a system like ours, within the ecosystem, cybersecurity ecosystem in Nigeria, especially within the context of some of what we've talked about today?
Yes, I'll say, in implementing the mandate that the CBN has given, I think preference should be given to local innovators. And why I say that is because they have data, they have AI models that can help fight, these cyber attacks that are very conversant with our local environment. So they're very conversant with our own issues, how to combat issues within the Nigerian banking ecosystem. So I think preference should be given to local innovators. And then, of course, programs like federal government 3 MMTT, that's 3 million students. Okay. This is the time when we can absorb all talent into understand how to, especially the ones who did the cybersecurity track, they can understand how these integrations are done, right? And how the federal government is going to make that partnership so that we've talked about. I think that the tech talents that the government has produced from that program will be heavily involved. And because of what I do, which is AI programs, I'm able to help different businesses understand how to integrate AI into their workflow. It's important that the talents that were produced from this program, from the 3MMTT program, are function in this AI space at this point in time, and just make it all the more easier. Because if there's one thing I found out is that there are not many people who do what I do at this point in time, which should not be the case. Right? I was in Rwanda recently, and then the client was looking for someone to do their AI strategy in Lagos, and there was nobody who they could really find to do that task. But I know
in Lagos,
many young people.
I know Rwanda is making so much progress, but to say that you couldn't find someone in Lagos, I mean, isn't that a shame, really?
I would say it is, right? So it is important that all the technical talent that we have, we find a way to help them bridge the bridge the gap between business and technology, right? So they can go to any place and then help to transform people and processes and systems, and also merge all of it with technology. It's what AI requires, really.
Rakwe, this has been quite insightful. I'd like to thank you for giving us time. I understand you're at a workshop. That's why we can hear we get snippets of
Yes.
sounds from your area, people
Oh,
talking
yes.
behind you. That's okay. I'm very sure our viewer has been able to glean as much as we have from our end here. I'd like to thank you so much, Orakwe John, AI Programs Lead, Global AI Educator, and Digital Transformation Leader, for granting us audience, for coming on Insight. Thank you so much for your thoughts on this matter.
All right. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.